You're listening to MinerTalk on demand exclusively on 600 ESPN El Paso. Stay up to date with MinerTalk by downloading the free 600 ESPN El Paso mobile app.
All right, welcome in. It is MinerTalk. We are live, presented by Jack in the Box. I'm Adrian Broadus, along with Sal Montes. We got George Guajardo as well. Alberto Reta will join us next week on Thursday. Zay Galindo might be stopping by. Not sure. Maybe we'll get him on the phones, but we expect him next week as well. Miners road sweep. That is how we start off the show. 81-73 against Florida International. A rare afternoon game. I like these afternoon tip-offs, Sal. However, that crowd is awful. ESPN Plus broadcast was terrible. I ditched the ESPN Plus broadcast right away, and I went all radio the entire game with voice of the Miners, John Teicher. And the Miners, they had points in the second half where they were up by as much as 16. Then Florida International came back and cut it to as close as 4 points. But the Miners, in the end, were able to distance themselves. You can give a lot of credit to guys like David Terrell Jr., who I don't think we gave enough credit to on Thursday. I mean, he had a great weekend. I mean, credit him. A sophomore coming on the road in his first CUSA road stretch. What a stretch he had, and just a nice way to close out that game on his side. I loved, of course, Ahmad Bynum, the way he was able to close out that game with some clutch shots. Kevin Kalu with late-game free throws? Who is he?
Welcome back, right?
Welcome back. He's playing off the bench. He played in limited minutes, 10 minutes off the bench, but scored 11 points, 3 for 4 from the free throw line, hit 2 clutch free throws when it really mattered. Otis Frazier III with 22 points, his career high being 24, so just right around that. Great game from him, but the Miners were able to close out this game and win it on the road for a series sweep. Sal, this one could have been a buzzer beater. It could have been by 2. This one ends up being pretty comfortable when it's all said and done, even though it got kind of close in the last 5 minutes. Nonetheless, Miners escape Miami with a road sweep for their first CUSA road trip.
Yeah, and that's what you want, right? You're going to be able to sweep your road trip when it's very hard for a road team to come away. I mean, if you look at a split, all right, it's acceptable, it's respectable, but you were able to go out there and get this sweep and in rather impressive fashion if you really look at it. I mean, with Liberty, that one came down to the wire. Maybe they got a little lucky at the end, but if you're lucky and you win, you're going to take that 10 times out of 10. That last shot that Liberty had was close, but nonetheless, though, they escape, and you're able to go down to Miami and get a win on a day and time that I think is kind of hard for a lot of teams to get up for, especially in this league. I mean, if you're the Big Ten or something, I mean, you're playing games at 10 in the morning Mountain Time when at that point. But for UTEP, getting up for this one in the afternoon, I liked it, man. It was closer than we would have liked, but they do what they need to do to get the win at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're totally right on that, Sal. Our telephone number now at 55505-6009. UTEP defeats FIU 81-73. We're just getting started here on the program. We're presented by Jack in the Box. They've got 15 locations located here in El Paso and Las Cruces. That's Jack in the Box. Open 365, 24/7. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, doesn't matter. It's Jack in the Box, the perfect spot to go before and after every game. We have updates for UTEP women's basketball. They squeeze out a win against Florida International, 70-68. We'll talk about that one here in just a second. But before we do that, let's go to the phone lines right now, 915-505-6009. Kevin Burrell joining us now from Paso Podcast. He is joining us right now here on the program. Kevin, you were on site for this one. Miners end up winning 81-73. Florida International made it close at some points in this one, but what'd you notice from this game and just immediate takeaways from this game?
Yeah, definitely a rough one for FIU. Going down early, unfortunately, and the turnover is really just an issue for FIU all game. You somehow out-rebounded UTEP. Again, three-pointer is a big issue, going 4 for 17. Not a bad night, at least field goal-wise, making 27 out of the 58 shots. But, yeah, just a slow night for FIU. I mean, really tried getting it, really made it close. They had a lot of calls go their way, at least throughout after the reviews. But unfortunately, just couldn't get it going. And, props to UTEP. They got it going, in that second half, and they they made it hard for FIU to come back.
Hey, I appreciate you calling, Kevin. I just want to say Miners did a good job stopping Jaden Brewer, one of the best players for Florida International. He only had 5 points tonight on 2 for 7 scoring, but between Jonathan Abar and some of the other players on that team like Cole Williams coming off the bench, I felt like Florida International was able to score points, hang in the game, and they're real pesky, especially in the late game situations. They never want to quit in these moments.
Yeah, and that's what you'll always see from this team. Jeremy Ballard is a big guy, and keeping it going nonstop, no matter how much you're down or how much you're up. And props to Cole Williams. He's a guy who really hasn't gotten a lot of minutes with Dante Wilcox out. It was going to be expected that he would play a lot. Ends up getting 22 minutes, a career high 13 points. Doesn't miss a shot. I mean, he looked really good. That was the type of spark plug that FIU had in the Sam Houston game before he went out. You mentioned Jonathan Abar has been very inconsistent this season, but 17 points, he'll take that any day. Unfortunately, just not great from the 3-point line, 1 for 5 from beyond the arc, and then big man Vianney Salachum, obviously a big game for him. He continues to be probably the best offensive player for FIU these last couple of days, and even in the absence of Jalen Brewer in terms of just his production that he's been putting up this season. You're getting, guys like Cole Williams, Salachum, Abar, and even Gittins, who did a little bit of everything today. 4 rebounds, had 9 points, still helped you out a little bit there. But, yeah, I mean, overall, tough night. UTEP really put on a show, especially with the alley-oop there towards, I believe, that was in the first half.
Right.
But, yeah, no, they played one hell of a game, and they were great from beyond the arc. There's no other way to say it, at least. Compared to what FIU did.
Kevin Burrell, he is a co-host and writer of the Pause Up podcast, covers Florida International, was on site to watch UTEP Florida International today. Kevin, appreciate you doing back-to-back with us here on 600 ESPN El Paso, man. It's great to talk to you.
Anytime, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, that's Kevin Burrell joining us here as we continue. Let's go back to the phone lines, 915-505-6009. UTEP, 8173. George Wahardo in the building as well. George, your thoughts on this one. Miners get a road win and road sweep this week. We'll go to Roman here in just a second on the phone lines. But, George, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about before, where was it, after that NMSU game, we talked about possibly walking away with this road trip with a split, right? And we would be happy with that, losing to Liberty and then maybe walking away with a win at FIU. You end up sweeping the road trip. That I think that says a lot, especially to Sal's point. And Coach Golding talked about it too, and so did Voice of the Miners, John Teicher, about that wonky late start and then late finish in Lynchburg, coming all the way to Miami, and then having to play this game at noon to be able to do that. And UTEP kind of looked like a team, right, that had a little bit of rest, right? They were kind of sloppy with the ball, 14 turnovers, 14 turnovers uncharacteristic. 13 turnovers uncharacteristic of UTEP there. But I thought they dug deep, and the best players came to play. Otis Frazier, 8 for 10, 22 points. Ahmad Bynum keeping his hot streak going, 18 points on 6 for 11 shooting. He played really well. Just great to walk away with road sweeps, even in this conference. So, I mean, UTEP's got to be feeling good about themselves, although you don't really like how they finished that game, but you take this, right?
No, I think they're totally fine. I mean, I get it. I think it's more of a testament to Florida International. I think you heard from head coach Joe Golding after the game. He's given a lot of praise to the Panthers and saying how at the end of those games, that's where they're the peskiest, and that's where they make games really uncomfortable for other teams. Sal, women get the big win at home, 70-68 against Florida International.
Yeah, Tensaya gets a huge bucket. The eventual game winner with like 2 seconds or so left. FIU is able to go on to the other end and get their shot off, but it was way off. It hits the rim, and Miners celebrate that one. But they were down by double digits going into the second half, and they have a competitive third quarter. They get the edge by a couple points, but that fourth quarter, man, they completely locked in. Just a great job defensively by the Miners to close things out. But Tensaya, again, I think we've seen this movie before with her, but no, man, just a great win for the Miners, and a respectable conference win as well. I think FIU had a 3-2 record or 2-2 record, something along the lines of that, but in conference play, and the Miners trying to get back on the right foot with it. So a huge win for them.
It's a good win right there. But the way Tensai is for late game buckets is kind of like how Ahmad Bynum is for late game buckets for the men's squad. So good stuff for the women's team getting a big win tonight, or today I should say, against Florida International, and a Miner Day sweep for both sides. So good stuff right there. Roman's next with us, 915-505-6009. We've got phone lines available. You want to talk some UTEP hoops with us? Let's do it. 915-505-6009. Roman, what's going on? How's it going, man?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Just a few things. Number one, I think that, Kalu, I don't even know why he was out last game. I didn't hear that part of the story.
Yeah, it was
really
a groin
strong
injury. It was actually a groin injury that happened with Kevin Kalu. So he was out last game, but he was back this game. So I think they were obviously, keeping him on a limited time frame, but they're definitely using him in this one. 11 minutes off the bench.
Yeah, he played really well. I'm not sure if you saw, but, man, those two alley-oops. The first one was the two-hander. The second one was, oh, my God. I jumped out of my seat when I saw that one-handed alley-oop. I was like, wow, he looked really good. But, yeah, great win against a not-so-great team. But, obviously they're at home, so they're gonna play hard. And then also the second thing is going to be who was lifting off the court from the Miners at halftime, because I saw that somebody got hurt.
That was Bynum. Yeah, it was Bynum, and I was worried that he wouldn't come back, but he came back right away in the second half.
Thank God. But I think that at the end of the day, this is the last thing I'll say. At the end of the day, there's a lot of games, except for the NMSU one, where it's an up and down thing. It's like your emotions are high, then you're kind of getting complacent. But you know what? The Miners pulled it off, which is great. But they did look a little winded and a little tired. If you look at Frazier, I know you said you stopped watching the ESPN, and I agree with that also. The ESPN, oh my God, dude, can they get some different guys that can give some credit? They're talking about the Miners, but they're showing highlights for FIU.
Terrible.
I guess maybe because they're at home. So either way, like I said, they look a little tired, they look a little winded, so hopefully they get some rest. They can come back and kick some butt at home.
Yeah, totally with you there. Great job, Roman. Appreciate the phone call, man. Thanks for weighing in. Now at 550-6009, our telephone number on the program, 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter next, and 600 ESPNElPaso.com. To the point of what Roman was saying, Bynum comes out of the half, 13 points, Sal. He was kind of limping coming into halftime a little gingerly. You texted me that as well. 13 points out of the half. Very impressive game, man, all around. 3 steals by UTEP's best six man, one of the best six men you're going to find in Conference USA. Otis Frazier III, I agree, maybe running a little bit out of steam, but 12 points in the first half, paced the Miners nicely, and the Miners had a 44-36 halftime advantage over the Panthers.
Yeah, and it's really just about taking advantage of those opportunities to either keep you afloat, right, if you're trying to get back into the game and you want to keep it in a certain range, keep you afloat if, you know what I mean, if the other team's coming back and you kind of stop the bleeding for a little bit. But they were able to seal it at the end of the game with their free throws. Unfortunately, that double-digit lead, evaporated, and FIU made it into a game where they were within foul range, so to speak, like, hey, we'll foul you, see if you cannot make some and then make some buckets, and it's theirs. But no, man, they did what they needed to do on that next step, right, those levels, right, 10 points, 5 points, all right, get your free throws done, and they were able to do it, man. It's huge.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. 915-505-6009, our telephone number on the program. Couple tweets to get to here on the program. This is coming in from Shannon. Was Devin Barnes recruited by UTEP out of high school? At UTEP's at Adrian Broadus, he's very good. He was not an El Paso kid out of high school. He moved right before high school. He had lived in El Paso, the longest place that he'd ever lived anywhere as a military kid, Shannon. So Devin Barnes was not recruited by UTEP out of high school. However, before he went to Tarleton State, Joe Golding will say that they went after both he and Ahmad Bynum, weren't able to get either of them. Barnes went to Tarleton State, killed it over there, was their leading scorer, and then Bynum went over to Trinity Valley College last year, and he killed it over there as well. So those guys ended up coming to UTEP when it was all said and done. Joe Chacon, these refs and their last 3 calls are killing UTEP. The last shot was good. The ball went off FIU player, and now the shot clock. Come on, man. A lot of those replays were questionable, but it's okay. Jeremy Karanko, ball didn't even touch the rim at all. It was all glass. How do they overturn that? I'm totally with you guys on that. Trey Pollitt's 2 great bounce-back games. Bynum, a 3-point killer. Kalu was great today. Glad to have him back. Yeah, I hear you on that. Matthew Castro, too close for comfort in the end, but I'll take a road sweep. Hoping to see more consistent play from Camper Jr. as the season progresses. The 2 things that I'll say from this one, Sal, I'll mention 2 things to you. Not a lot of minutes for Elijah Jones. He had 10 minutes today off the bench. It was a lot of, like I said, for Kevin Kalu, I was looking at the minutes count. I got it wrong. I said 11. It was 23 minutes for Kalu, so he actually played a little bit more. It was really Hamilton who wasn't getting a lot of minutes at all. He only had 4 minutes. They abandoned Derek Hamilton in this one. Maybe a little fatigue right there, so it was a lot of Kalu and Elijah Jones. It just felt like it wasn't the same Elijah Jones that you felt in that Liberty game. It was all Kalu as far as front court presence tonight for the Miners, or today for the Miners.
And that's what was working for them. I don't think this happens if Frazier, or not Frazier, I'm sorry, if Hamilton isn't getting into his foul trouble early. You know what I mean? And I think the same could be said for almost any big who gets a start. You know what I mean? Sure, there's going to be minutes to spare around, but you get that backup plan in case there's foul trouble or they're just not working out, that specific game. And that's what happened today. We know Kalu's the usual starter in this case, but with Hamilton, he's able to go out there and at least utilize his size, here and there to make a little bit of a difference. So, this doesn't happen, man, if Hamilton's not in his foul trouble.
Yeah, totally with you on that, Sal. 915-505-6009. George, your thoughts? Kevin Kalu returning to the mix tonight or today for the Miners.
Yeah, great to have him back, right? Like you said, 23 minutes, 11 points on 4 or 5 shooting. But it was really the alley-oops, right? The energy, especially on the offensive glass. He cleaned up 3 offensive rebounds there, 4 total rebounds. You still like to see that number to be higher. Obviously, it's plus-minus around 6. Just effective, right? Of all the bigs that we had out there, Benge even got in the game. He was by far the most effective. But really, the free throws at the end of the game right there, that was when the game was sort of teetering on, one of those like, oh, man, FIU is going to come back and tie this up. He nailed them and really kind of settled UTEP's offense down there. And so shout out to Kalu coming back from whatever was bothering him, the groin injury, to come back and to play this effectively.
All right, back to the phones we go. It's Sidelines. Who's next with us? 915-505-6009. Sidelines, what's going on? You called the road sweep last week, man, so we had to bring you back here on the show. UTEP defeated Liberty on Thursday, and then today they beat FIU 81-73.
Man, I was kind of shocked even seeing them win this game. For some reason, I had a really bad feeling about this game, and I talked about it on Thursday with you guys. Like, first off, I hate the court, and secondly, UTEP just never really plays well here, man. But I'll go pick up my flowers at KRD later today, okay, Adrian?
Nice,
so,
yeah, there you go.
People called me delusional, so I'll pick up my roses on the way out, okay? But hey, man, it was a good win today. Everything went right. They shot 53% from the field today, man. That is insane. And I can't even recall the last time a Joe Golding UTEP team has shot that well. You just love to see it, man. This team they improved on the shooting, they improved on the free throw, and they improved on their 3-point play. I love what I saw from Ahmad Bynum today too, man. Like, we've been talking about it these past few years, Adrian. Like, this team was just missing like a consistent 3-point threat. And, I know Bynum has his days where he's not really making all his shots, but, man, he is the 3-point threat we needed.
It's a good point. It's a good point, Kevin. Yeah, and I would also say this for Bynum, the late game stuff is really clutch. To do it in the game and consistently is one thing, but to do it at the end of the game, that's a whole other thing. So impressed by Bynum in a big way. But Sidelines, I'll ask you this. There's 5 games coming up here that are key for UTEP to close out the month of January and then start the month of February. So you tell me, when's UTEP's next loss? Home against Jacksonville State next week, home against Kennesaw State next Saturday. Then it's on the road at Western Kentucky, at Middle Tennessee Saturday, February 1st, and then Saturday, February 8th at New Mexico State, I should say. So when's the next UTEP loss, in your opinion?
Man, that one's a tough one. I think they should win those next two games at home, honestly. They're way better than those teams that are coming in, so they should get that home sweep. Oh, man, Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee is one of those secretly good teams. They didn't get a lot of attention in this offseason, but they got a team that just full of shooters, kind of similar to Liberty. I'll pick us losing that game against Middle Tennessee. They'll split that road series 1-1. They'll beat Western Kentucky, but I think they'll fall to Middle Tennessee on the road, and that should be their last loss of the year. Don't quote me.
Wow.
Last loss in conference play, at least.
Man, sidelines with some high optimism. Hey, man, I appreciate it as always. Any other final thoughts? UTEP defeats FIU 81-73.
Nah, man, no, not much final thoughts. Honestly, they played well today. Not really a whole lot to talk about today.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm glad they turned the page on that NMSU game, guys. Honestly, like I said, after the NMSU game, sometimes this team needs to get punched in the face to kind of wake up and be like, all right, well, let's get back to work, and it's a new day. You know, UTEP's the top team in this conference, so they got to start acting and playing like it, too.
Okay. All right, good stuff, Sidelines. I appreciate it. Sal, let's do it, man. I think the next UTEP loss is Western Kentucky. I'm going to say that one Thursday, January 30th, on the road at Western Kentucky. What about you?
The Western one, that's going to be tough, man. I think that one is going to be a loss, but they probably get the one at Middle.
Okay, so those two, and then George, what do you think as far as those? When's the next UTEP loss? Do you think they sweep next week at home and then go on the road? One of those road games end up being a loss?
Yeah, I actually agree with Sidelines. I think that Western Kentucky team and that game from last year is ingrained in this team's head, so they're going to show up for that game, I think, and they're gonna beat Western, and then I do think that they lose to Middle Tennessee.
Okay, so it'll be a good swing, though, a good stretch of 5 games. If they're able to go 3-2 in those 5 games, I think that says a lot about UTEP. So let's see what happens. I think if they win one of those 3 road games between Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, and New Mexico State, that's a win in my opinion. So let's see how it goes when it's all said and done for the Miners on the road after they're able to come back home next week against Jacksonville State and Kennesaw State. So those are pretty interesting, an interesting stretch right here that's coming up here for the Miners, who right now, they're 14-4. Coming off a road sweep. First time they did this road sweep in Conference USA since 2022. So for the Miners and Joe Golding, that was their first year here at the program. So haven't done that on the road since then. Couple other tweets to get to. Milkman checks into the program. That one-handed alley-oop by UTEP's Kevin Kalu. Just nasty. Hashtag picks up. Daniel, this FIU coach puts more energy in trying to whine to officials rather than putting energy to coaching his program. Embarrassing. This is Aaron Peterson. We call this a scare, but never felt like the Miners were in control or weren't in control of this game. Conference USA is a pretty good conference this year. Even the weakest team is giving the league's best a run for their money. Great win and great road trip for the Miners. So your thoughts there, Sal?
That's so true, man, because we talked about it right now, and Sidelines had talked about it too, but Western Kentucky, right? Like how good of a team they are. FIU beat that Western Kentucky team, who probably had the best non-conference stretch just in terms of quality of wins and whatnot. So that's a team who's up there.
Yeah,
man.
That's a great point.
So I mean, UTEP able to get a little bit scared by FIU. However, this FIU team beat Western Kentucky. UTEP getting beat rather by New Mexico State. FIU played them tough up until the last final of a couple of possessions.
That's a good point.
I mean, the parity in this league is insane.
Yeah, I love this. The fact that this league, it feels like it's elevated, and that's good at least for the final 2 years of this conference, right, George? The fact that you can look back and say it's still not going to be a multi-bid league, but at least the quality is much better this time around this year.
Yeah, and I have a question for you and Sal. Like, is this the best you've seen CUSA in a long time? I mean, how long do you have to go back to think about how much parity there's been, that there's going to be in this league this year?
So I'll say this. The way I'll answer it, and I'll let you answer it next, Sal, and I'll wrap it up on this. I'll just say for the Miners right now, they're ranked 9th, so they're top 10 by conference right now. So they're 9th in Conference USA. So Conference USA, 9th out of 10 conferences across college basketball. But your thoughts, Sal?
I think this may be It's hard to say if it's the best just because I don't have a clear picture and I can't feel confident saying it. I'll say it's one of the better ones, but I'll give you a time frame. It's one of the better Conference USAs that we've seen since, you know what, I'll go back to it, man, back when Memphis was in UAB. And I'm not saying like these teams are powers like that, but just in terms of how competitive this entire league can be. I mean, even when UTEP had Randy Culpepper, there was a game that they were playing against Rice, and they had to, just like this game, they had to hit free throws to go ahead and seal the deal. So it's a tough one, man. I'd say it's one of the better leagues in a span of like maybe 10, 15 years.
You know, it's real interesting. The last time Conference USA was a top 10 conference in the NCAA, they were ranked 8th in the NCAA in 2011. Coincidentally enough, that's the year where the Miners had an opportunity to go all the way to the Conference USA Tournament Championship, eventually losing to Memphis. So that was a great year in terms of Conference USA. Another strong year that you could look back on where Conference USA was ranked 10th out of NCAA was 2012. And in that season, the Miners struggled, but there were some really good teams. Memphis was excellent that year under Josh Pastner. There was also a really good Southern Miss team under Larry Eustace. UCF was pretty good that year under Donnie Jones. There was some really good teams that year. Marshall was strong under Harry-On, who was their head coach over there. So strong teams out of Conference USA 2011, 2012. So you're looking a decade plus. But good question, George. Last time that Conference USA has been this strong. And I'd say as far as teams who are helping this conference out, you got to give credit to the newly acquired squads like New Mexico State. They're 4-0 in Conference USA so far, 11-6 overall in this conference. And right now, home teams are still having the advantage in this conference. As far as advantage goes, Sal, home teams so far are 15-8. So home teams still having a lot of success in these games.
I think we got to ask the question as to, like, around what percentage would you say it's not really that much of an advantage? The easy one would say 50%. But,
yes.
I mean, if you're in the 50s, at least, let's say high 50s, is that even more so an advantage? Like, the game's going to be within reach. What would it be? Something like 65, maybe 60 plus?
Yeah, so this is 65% right now.
So
teams are winning at that clip. And after today, I'm curious what happens because this was only the first game where a road team won. What if another road team like New Mexico State steals a game today?
And you know what? I'll throw another one at you as well. La Tech is playing at Kennesaw.
Wow, and Western Kentucky's playing at Middle Tennessee, so there's some good games.
Yeah.
Sam Houston at Jacksonville State. There's some good opportunities.
This could be a rare it could either be a rare weekend game or slate, you should say, of road teams winning, or maybe this is the buck of the trend where things start to go the other way and it goes in favor of the away teams. Who knows?
Yeah, totally with you on that. Andrew checks in on Twitter and X. After the loss against New Mexico State, Sideline said UTEP would bounce back with a 2-game road sweep. No one else believed it would happen. Got to give him credit. He called it #MinerTalk. This is coming in from Joe Chacon. Miner women just won too. That's right. Joe Rod checks in, heading over to Benito Juarez Olympic Stadium, which reminded me to ask you to check out his latest on FC Juarez and FC Juarez Femenil at 600ESPNElPaso.com. Check it out. That's good stuff right there. Pinky's checking in as well. Thank you for listening, Pinky. We appreciate you as always. But UTEP today, getting a big road sweep win over Florida International. Let's get to our Win Supply El Paso hot hand of the game, Sal. Let's already do this one right now. Let's waste no time. And in this one, we're going to go with Otis Frazier III. 22 points, 8 for 10 from the field in this game. He had 2 assists in this one as well and 3 steals, 35 minutes of action. Otis Frazier III continues to show why he's one of the best in the league. Sal, he had 14 points against Liberty, 22 tonight. Does he make a case for maybe CUSA Player of the Week at the end of this?
It's possible. It definitely is possible. And there was some fire that he caught. I think he had what was the range? Something like 6 or 7 points in the span of like 2 minutes or so. I mean, this guy was just in a world of his own out there, and it helped change the trajectory of the team because starting out the game, this team was cold, man. They couldn't get anything going. I think maybe 2 points in the first 5 minutes or so, or 4 minutes.
Right.
And then they just erupt, and they're able to have more than 40 going into the break. So that helped start it for sure.
Yeah, totally with you on that. And that's Otis Frazier III winning the hot hand of the game here on 600 ESPN El Paso. Check out WinSupplyElPaso.com. You could stay on schedule with Win Supply El Paso. Click the Find a Dealer tab and check out Champion Dealers, certified champion elite dealers at WinSupplyElPaso.com. Going over to the Player of the Game award, this is going to Ahmad Bynum. I just mentioned Otis Frazier III. Could he be Player of the Game or Player of the Week at a Conference USA? How about Ahmad Bynum? He had against Liberty in that game, of course, the buzzer-beating shot, or at least the shot close to the buzzer that lifted the Miners 72-70. He had 13 points in that one, and he translates that to 18 points today against Florida International, 18 with 4 3-pointers. He also had 4 assists and 3 steals in 27 minutes off the bench. Sal, he is the player of the game tonight. Ahmad Bynum absolutely killing it.
Yeah, and he's continuing this. When he was doing this in non-conference play, we were like, okay, cool. Can you do it in the first week of conference? All right, he was able to show some things. Then he does it in week number 2. Now week number 3 is coming in, and this is really where things start to get a little bit thicker. So you love to see your guys out there getting big buckets when it matters, and more importantly, I think my favorite stat tonight when it comes to Bynum is 0 turnovers. 0. This is a guy who has the ball a lot. So if you can be effective with the ball and be effective without the ball, you're going to make an impact. I have no issue with this, man. And it's not the first time we're going to see, or it's not the 4th time. It's not going to be the 5th. We're going to continue to see a lot of big games from Bynum.
Yeah, the 11 attempts is something I like too. He needs to have more attempts in shots like that. So good stuff right there by Ahmad Bynum. He is the player of the game tonight. Hey, big shout out to the District Pub and Kitchen West, 3233 North Mesa. They will be showing UFC 311 tonight. We'll be back in action over there on next Thursday and Saturday as well. So if you want tickets to the next UTEP game, make sure to stop by District Pub and Kitchen West, 3233 North Mesa, ahead of watching some UTEP basketball. So that's all happening next week. So really excited about that. And this weekend out at the District West, best spot to watch NFL playoff action as well. But George, I'm going to get your final thoughts tonight, or today I should say. I keep saying tonight. UTEP with a win against Florida International, 81-73, and a road sweep for the Miners.
Yeah, obviously we stated it before, great win, right? I just wonder if this is going to be the trend moving forward with Otis Frazier and Ahmad Bynum leading the way, in points and attempts, obviously minutes, and just kind of leading this Miner team. I know Sal talked about that crazy stretch that Otis Frazier III had. He had that 4-point play, if I recall correctly, early in that first half to kind of really, like Sal said, get them kicked off. The guards didn't play particularly well outside of Bynum. I think between Camper, Terrell, and Barnes, they had 9 turnovers. 10 turnovers. Just a little bit uncharacteristic. But again, that just goes to show how deep UTEP is. These guys have 3 guys have off nights. 3 other guys step up. Frazier, Bynum, and Kalu. And so I think just obviously the rest of the year, we're just going to have to continue. UTEP's going to have to continue to lean on that depth and continue to dig deep after that NMSU loss.
Sal, any final thoughts going into next week? And the Miners improving their record right now at 14-4 overall.
Yeah, this is where a lot of people expected them to be. I expected them to be in this spot, especially returning the players that you're returning.
I agree.
Having that big, that big show out near the end of last season. So it's all priming up for what's to be a top, let's be real about it. Anything less than a top 3 finish in regular season Conference USA is a disappointment. You're one of the top teams now. Continue to play like it. Good stretch, but guess what? You still got to continue to win. So, go get that sweep at home.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens next week. And let's see what happens with the Miners coming back home after a back-to-back win streak on the road. So let's see what happens. It is Jacksonville State and Kennesaw State next week. We are presented by Jack in the Box. That'll do it for us here on Miner Talk. We appreciate everybody listening in on the show. Shorter show today. We'll be back in action next week for more on the program. We extended it on Thursday. I think that was the big one. But the Miners sweep this week and get 2 wins after a 28-point loss to New Mexico State. What will happen next week? We'll have it for you coming up on Thursday. But for George Guajardo, for Sal Montes, I'm Adrian Broadus. UTEP defeats Florida International 81-73. Enjoy NFL playoffs coming up next here on 600 ESPN El Paso.
Go Lions!